This is Eric Van Buskirk. This is the second video about doing LSI keyword research. The first was more about how to do the research itself using dozens of landing pages that are associated to a core entity that we're trying to look into. This one is about how to make that actionable and take this highly structured information and actually turn it into writing and content creation. I just wanted to point out one thing in the beginning, which is that we've been looking at a relatively esoteric core theme, which is the semantic web. Not something that's talked about a whole lot, and there's, because of that, maybe not as many ways of talking about it. When I look at some of these that have a lot of search volume, and this is an example of, you're seeing a raw table for when I did SEO, and I looked at words like SEO and search engine optimization, you find that there's a heck of a lot more variance with the different kinds of keywords that come up. I mean, so when I actually go in and look at the network table graph that I made from that, look at the difference here. So I even pulled out all the ones and look at how many keywords there are for relationships to SEO versus what we see with, in the last video, the relationships to latent semantic indexing. So what that says to me is that if your theme has all kinds of ways of talking about it, and I think a lot of products do actually, you may have a more rich set of information to work with. As a reminder, we are doing this to rank high. I think the people that do this research are going to tend to be SEOs, but there's more to it than that, because what you're doing is you're covering the authoritative web pages, addressing and distilling what's found there, so your users find the content super informative. So remember, the exercise here is being done also because we want to create something that's highly meaningful and is taking the best of the best from all the various result pages. The purpose of translating for a content creator is that all of this, again, seems so logical. How do we make this actionable to make it of interest to people? And that's a challenge. That's a big challenge I'm finding. The score, I think, is one of the most important factors here, and I tend to want to filter out the ones for most of what's being done because they only appeared once. So, they may be something to think about when you're going to write, but they're certainly not of particular importance. The two other metrics that I find really important are the CPC and the search volume. We look at CPC because it tells us the value of something. It's really a great way to figure out whether something is important to others, because if it is, then probably it's going to be something you also want to show for your readers. It also may mean that it's more competitive, and that's something to think about as well. Search volume, of course that's important because it means that if you rank for these words, you're going to get a lot of visitors. One of the challenges is to look at some of the keywords that have many ways of saying the same thing. And we can't necessarily just keep using all the different ways of saying the same thing, or we're basically just keyword stuffing. I'd like to move over now and look at the data in an Excel sheet. You'll notice that some of the words I was talking about as being so similar are actually misspellings. What you're seeing there is a search term that returns the correct spelling. So if you typed in semantic web like this, you would have gotten the result page for the correct spelling like this. Nevertheless, we do want to use these iterations when possible in different parts of the document. We might even be able to put a quote around some of the misspellings and just mention somewhere that this is how people typically misspell the words. Obviously, I wouldn't do that too much on a website because it begins to look like you're including a lot of misspellings on your site. When we put all the different ways that people search together and we know the kind of volume for their searches, we also can combine the search volume to get an understanding of how they perform versus some of the other words in our list of results. As you look at these here, though, you'll notice some of these, for example, just the word semantic, are higher level words. They're sort of taking a step outward from the more precise meaning of what our search is for. We're looking at the semantic web or the things that have to do with semantic web. This is just semantic. And it's spelled wrong, by the way. So the question becomes, how relevant is the search volume for that kind of thing, and how relevant is it to what we're doing, since it's really just looking at what appears as a less precise search. I would just look at it as the information you have on a less precise search. When you see something like the word semantic, hopefully properly spelled as it is here, alone, and get an understanding of the less precise search and how much search volume there is. As I've moved into the Excel sheet, this is the place where I'm going to translate, in a sense, all of the very, very logical and structured way that we saw the data returned to us into an actionable form. The score is most important to me. That's what, in the end, is so unique about what we've done here, and it's going to be what helps me weight what to use and to what extent. The other two metrics that I like to look at a lot are volume and CPC. So I've mentioned earlier that cost per click is a way of looking at the value of words, and volume, of course, is a way of looking at potential traffic that you can get. This is monthly volume, by the way. Combined, these three metrics are going to help me make decisions about how this can be written up. I don't want to create too much structure for a writer. On the other hand, maybe this is too little structure, depending on whether I think they can look at some of this information and also the graphs or the actual tables and come to some decisions on their own. At this point, I'd like to wrap up and move on to the third video, which will conclude my discussion of how to take the research from looking for the semantic associations and turning it into actionable content creation. Do keep in mind that this could be added to existing web pages, although I'm focusing right now on creating brand new web pages and content.